Okay, this video is going to walk through coding an automatic E90 that's been swapped to a manual for the LSE90 group, as well as coding out some of the dashboard lights that are present. I'm actually able to code out all of mine, but it may depend on what different options your car had and what modules it came with. But before we start, two things you're going to need. First, you're going to need the tools. So these used to be available from Bimmer Geeks. They're no longer there, so you have to kind of scour the internet. So this is the one I've been using, Mike's Easy BMW Tool Package. It contains the correct DATN files for our vehicles. So these should go all the way up to like 2015-ish, if I recall. And so this is a good starting set here. The other thing you're going to need is a cable. This is the cable I've used. I've never had a problem with it, even though it's only $25. It works great. I've never had a problem coding with it, so look around for one of these as well because you're going to need it. All right, now two things also before we actually code. You're going to need to hook up your car to a battery charger, or you can jumper cable it to another battery if you want, so you've got extra power. But you need to make sure your car has enough electricity or enough voltage, because you don't want these modules going down right in the middle of coding, because you might have to replace it and you'll brick the module. So the other thing too, just before we get started, something to be familiar with, there are one directory we're going to have to be in and out of quite a bit. So and there's specifically three tools: INPA, NCS Dummy, and NCS Expert. So those are the three we're going to be playing with today. NCS Expert has its own folder, and there's a directory called work inside of it. A couple things we're going to need to remember is some of these file extensions. So man is a manipulation file. So this is if you want to write something into a module, these files need to be populated. And then the TRC files are trace files. So essentially this is a backup of the code that is currently in the module. So we'll be pulling a lot of those as well and saving those off, so we have those for backups just in case something happens. All right, so now that we're out in the car, two things that we need to do before you start coding: make sure your car is hooked up to a battery charger, because it'll be in accessory mode for probably 30 or 40 minutes while you're doing this, maybe longer. The other thing I would recommend, just depending on what kind of fuel system you're using, but if you're using the factory fuel pump, maybe going through the EKP or even a relay, make sure you pull the fuel pump fuse out so it's not running the entire time you're doing this. So we're going to be using three applications: INPA, NCS Dummy, NCS Expert. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure we plug our cable in, and then we're going to open up INPA. Now, if you have good connection, you should see this on button here. There is a configuration file for INPA that you have to program which COM port you're using. There's plenty of videos out there on how to do that. But just make sure you've established good connection. The other thing to test too is put your key in and put your car into accessory power mode, and you should see the ignition light over here turn on as well. So make sure both these are turned on, and then you can close INPA because we no longer need it. So the next thing we're going to do is go to NCS Expert, open this up. We're going to do File, Load Profile. Now, your profiles may differ depending on where you got your version of NCS Expert from. I did not have an expert mode when I got it, so I had to create one. There is a video out on YouTube on how to do that, so follow that and you'll be able to have an expert mode. So we're going to hit OK. Then we're going to select Chassis, pick E89, and then we're going to say VIN ZCS FA, and then pull our vehicle order or our FA from one of the CAS or the FRM modules. Now you may have different, depending on what year your vehicle is, you may have an NFRM instead of an FRM, so just be aware of that. In my case, mine's an August 2006 production car, so it just has an FRM and then a CAS module. So first thing we need to do is we need to modify our vehicle order. So this is what's going to tell NCS Expert the different modules and to populate and options and things. So go ahead and select Enter FA down here, then select your chassis. Make sure your VIN number matches your vehicle. Hit OK. And then we're actually interested in removing this $205 value. So this is the option for an automatic transmission. So just select it and click Delete. And the delete key on your keyboard, and then it should go away, and then we say OK. So the next step is now we need to write this into the CAS and the FRM module. So we're going to go back to this page here. We're going to say Process ECU. We're going to select the CAS module, say OK, hit OK here. And then it already is selected, but if it's not, we're going to select Change Job, and we're going to select FA Write. So this is write the vehicle order essentially. So hit OK. then we're going to say execute job. So this is going to write the vehicle order to the CAS module. And you can see it's already said job ended, so it's relatively quick. Then we're going to click change ECU. We're going to go to FRM, and in your case it may be NFRM, just depending on what year your car is. Say FRM there, and we're going to say change job. Make sure we have FA right selected, and then we're going to say execute. And this is going to write our vehicle order into the FRM module. So now since our vehicle order is set, now we need to tell the different modules that have automatic transmission options in them that there's no longer an automatic transmission, because this just changed the vehicle order. It didn't actually change any of necessarily the code in the back end. So what we're going to do is we want to factory write the modules that pertain or have some type of interface with the automatic transmission. Now that will differ by vehicle. In my car, it is the CAS module, the DSC module, the Combi, which is the cluster, and the FRM. Depending on your options, it may also include active cruise control. It could also be your longitudinal dynamics module, and there may be a few other ones out there. So you might have to do some research. But in my case, those are the ones we're going to modify. So before we do that, if you recall, there is a particular folder that I mentioned earlier. The work directory within NCS Expert, we need to double check that our manipulation files, the .man files, are empty. We do not want anything in here, because if not, it'll write code into the module. So just double check they're empty. If they're not, just delete everything that's in there and save it as an empty file. You cannot delete the file. If you do, NCS Expert will not work properly. The file has to exist. It just doesn't have to have anything in it. So the next thing we're going to do is factory code all these. So we're going to change ECU, and I'm going to start in alphabetical order, so I'm going to start with the CAS module. Now, the one thing I will recommend doing before you actually write any of this code into the vehicle is to make a backup of what you have. So just in case you have any other coding you've already done on the vehicle that you want to retain and repopulate after you do this, or just to have as good backup in case something happens. So we're going to select our CAS module. We're going to say read ECU, so this is actually going to pull what's currently in the module back, and that's what this data is right here. This is called a netodat file. So we're going to go ahead and save this as a backup. We're going to say save as. I'm going to go to my backup folder here, before factory coding. So this is the current configuration of this module, and this is a cas3_c06. So I always put the module name in here as well, just so I know what file this goes to. So we're going to hit save on that. Just double checking I had the right name. Yep. So now that we've saved that, what we're going to do is say change job. We're going to go to SG Coding, and this is why it's important to have an empty manipulation file, because if it doesn't exist, it's going to factory code it back, the module back to what it comes like out of the box. So say OK, and then we're going to say execute job. So this will flash essentially the manual transmission option into the CAS module, or the settings. So now that coding's ended, we're going to do the same thing over and over again. So change ECU. We're going to now go to the DSC module, hit OK. I'm going to say read ECU, and then I'm going to save this as a backup for the DSC module. And that's MK6087COA, if I recall. Yep. So again, that number will differ depending on what module your car has, but that's what mine's called. So I'm going to go ahead and save that into my backup directory for before factory coding. This is the backup before I write anything into it. So go ahead and save that and close it. Change job. Make sure we select SG Coding and then say execute. So this will flash the DSC module back to factory. So that's coding ended. So now I'm going to go back to change ECU, and after the DSC module, I'm going to go down now to the FRM, which is here. Read ECU, pull back the current config. Now this one does take a little bit longer to send, because there are a lot more options in the FRM. You can also do some light coding, error warning lights for your different lights around the car as well. But it does have an option for the automatic manual transmission, so you have to pull this one in as well. So we're going to say save as. I'll call this netodat. I can't remember my module name, so FRM FAC21. So we're going to call this FRM FAC21. And I'm going to save that in my backup directory. Okay. Now that we have a backup, change job. SG Coding, okay, execute. This is going to write our FRM. This one does take a little bit to write, so just don't still get nervous if it takes a lot longer than usual. This one does take a little bit to write. You'll also hear things like your seatbelt caddies moving and clicking noises and things like that underneath the dashboard, so just be aware that you'll see some things like that too. All right, coding ended, and then in my case, last but not least, change ECU. I'm gonna go to the combi module. So the combi is the gauge cluster. Hit OK, read ECU. We're gonna pull back the current code in the combi, save as, and this is the KMBI PL2C08 in my case. PL2C08. And make sure we put that in our backup directory. All right. And then we're gonna go ahead and change job. SG Coding, okay, execute. And the coding is ended. Now, if you have other modules, just continue doing the same process, right? Back them up, and then SG Coding, the default config, make sure your manipulation files are empty, and you should be able to finish coding those there. All right, so the next step is we're actually going to code out some dashboard lights, and so I'm actually going to record this real quick with my phone so you guys can see the dashboard lights I have. So I'm currently seeing a DSC module, a DSC warning, as well as the yellow brake lights on. Now, one of the things you can do, and actually we're going to need this information before we actually start coding, is if you're using the stalk on your BMW here, so the up, down, and the BC button, if you scroll down through the options here to check control and you push the BC button, you can see all your different warnings. I have an iDrive as well, so I can see what the names of them are. So now one of the things we want to do is if we hold down that BC button for about 5 seconds, what you'll see is you'll get a value underneath these warnings that are called CCIDs. They're check something, I can't recall. But essentially I have this one is for the, you can't go backwards, so that's the DSC malfunction, so CCID 35. I then have the DBC malfunction, dynamic brake control is what that's for. And then the other one I had that was up here was the start off assistant inactive. So the ones we're most interested in are the 35 and the 24. The start off assist we're actually going to code out of the vehicle, so it just doesn't have that option. So 24 and 35 are the two we're interested in. All right, so what we're going to do is we want to pull up the combi module. So the combi module is going to allow us to code out some of those warnings. So actually, let me take that back. So the first thing we're going to do is, because we factory wrote the CAS module, one of the things I learned the hard way is that it's expecting a clutch signal to start the vehicle. And I mean, I've done the swap on my car. I don't have a clutch sensor back there. All I have is the one that came with the brake pedal. And so my car is not going to get a clutch signal. And so I want to code that back so that I have to use my brake pedal to start the engine and turn off the engine. Because if you don't do that, you have to push it a bunch of times and hold it down and eventually shut the engine off. But it's kind of annoying. So let's start with the CAS module. So the first thing we're going to do, change ECU. We're going to go to CAS, pull this up, and I'm going to say read ECU. So pull out, pack the current CAS. And the reason I'm doing this again is because we coded the CAS back to factory a little bit ago. What I was doing was saving the before factory coding options. Now this is the factory code. So I'm going to go ahead and save this one and probably put it in a new folder. So we're going to call this probably factory. Put it as factory code. So this is netodat CAS3 C06. So go back to this one, CAS3 C06. I'm gonna save that. I have another one open too. I'm gonna make sure I close both of these so I don't get confused. So now what we're gonna do is we can minimize NCS Expert. I'm gonna go over to a program called NCS Dummy. So NCS Dummy basically takes those config files or those trace files we pulled in of the current configuration and shows them in a more human readable format so you can understand what each value is doing. So what we're going to do first is we're going to select, in my case, I'm just going to go ahead and pick my my config file. So that is under backup, and I have it called factory, and there's my new CAS module, which I apparently misspelled. And then we're going to find that module. This is why I saved the file, the module name in the file, because I have to go find it in here. So this is a CAS3C06, so CAS3C06 is right here. And what this is going to do is populate all the different values that you can change within that config file. Most importantly, actually, one of the reasons why we factory code this is if you scroll down here just a little bit, we're actually going to see transmission, which is where it would factory code the type of transmission it has. You'll notice this is manual, but if it wasn't automatic before, it would have been down here. So we have that coded in. What I'm going to do is, because there's quite a few options in here, there's a search function. I'm going to type in clutch because that's how I found it last time. And if we keep hitting find next, you're going to see these options here. Engine start only with clutch pedal depressed, and you'll notice that it's currently set to active. And you'll notice that the brake pedal one, which is just below that, is inactive. And so we actually want to swap these. So what we're going to do is click this checkbox here to turn off the clutch pedal depressed and turn on the brake pedal depressed options. And so now that we've selected those options, what you want to do, and one more time just to double check, is make sure that your manipulation files are empty, because what's going to happen is we're actually going to create one with this application. So what we do is we say export netodat, export netodat.man, and you hit OK, or you hit the option there, and now if we go look, that file is no longer empty, and this is the options that it wrote into it. So basically wrote the file for you, and then we're going to code this into the vehicle. So now back to NCS Expert. We're already on the CAS. If you want to, I'd recommend hitting read ECU one more time just to double check that you still have connectivity to it, because it's always important to make sure that's always up. And then we're actually going to do, we're going to go to basic functions, and we're going to select this option here. So this is co-API code SG by netodat. So essentially what this is telling the software is, hey, we're going to code using a netodat file. So it's going to ask you for the file name, and it's just netodat.man because it wrote it into the factory location. netodat.man, hit OK. And so now it's going to code that option into the CAS module. And there we go. So we've coded the using the brake pedal to start the vehicle. So the next thing we want to do is get rid of those annoying warning lights that I was showing you on the video. So we have the different CCID values, 24 and 35, that we want to code out. So if we go to change ECU, we're actually going to go select the combi. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to hide those out of the combi so that you don't see them anymore. So we're going to select combi, hit OK. Let's go ahead and hit read ECU because we want to get a backup of it now that it's been factory coded, because before, our previous one is before it was factory coded. So I'm going to go and save this, go to my backup directory, go to my factory directory, and I'm going to call this netodat KMBI, and I can't remember this, PL2C08. Combi PL2C08. Save that. Go ahead and close it. We're going to minimize NCS Expert. We're going to go back to NCS Dummy, and this time we're going to select our new combi file, our PL2C08. Hit OK. Select the module, PL2C08 right there. And now we are able to start modifying the values in here. So this one is going to be a little involved. It does require me to give you a really quick explanation of how these values work. So let me pull up Notepad real quick. So specifically the two areas we're looking for are this CCID active 01 and 02. So if you recall, what we looked up earlier was these CCIDs, and essentially this option or this setting within the module turns off different CCID checks that your car does to look and make sure things are working properly. So if you look at these values, you can see currently we're on WERT 02. Our data within that value is FF. So you might be thinking, what the hell does that mean? So this is actually a 32-bit hexadecimal. So each one of these is a byte. It's a 4-byte, I guess you could say, hexadecimal number. So these actually correspond to binary values. So FF is 8 ones all the way across. So that is what that value represents in binary. And if you're curious how I know that, you can go to a binary to hex converter, so you can just Google that, and there's one right there. If you type in a hexadecimal and we go to binary, if you type in FF, say convert, you'll see it's all ones. It's 8 digits because it's an 8-bit binary number. So the way this works within this module is that you have values basically 0 through 31 in here. And so those are also read right to left, because this always threw me off before when I was trying to do this. But essentially this first value here, this first eight digits, is related to values 0 through 7. And they're read in this direction. So 0 to 7, and then if we go over farther, this will be 8 to 15, like this. And the next one over is going to be 16 to 23. That's not in a very good spot, but we'll leave it like that. And then the last one here is 31 through 24. So basically 8 numbers in between. So the reason this is important is because this corresponds to the number that we need to turn off. So our first CCID that we're looking at is CCID 24, right? So that is for our dynamic brake control warning that we have. So what we want to do is find the 24th bit in this number and flip it to 0. So basically turning off that check. And so because I already shown you which values correspond to which number from a binary to a traditional decimal numbering system, we're actually going to flip this bit right here. So that's the 24th bit in this value. And so what that comes out to, if you were to put this into a binary to hex converter, if you bring this out, we'll go ahead and copy it, and I'll take you back over here just to show you how this works. Binary, and then hexadecimal, throw your binary number in there, convert, that's FE is what that comes back to. And so our new number our new value that we want to put in for that active 01 is FE, like that. And so that is going to basically say turn off CCID 24. So go back into NCS dummy. Now this is where it's a little different. So what we're going to do is right click on the CCID active 01, right click, say add custom data, and we're going to type in FE, like that. The other thing too is make sure you click that checkbox, because I kept forgetting that and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. So make sure you click the checkbox as well. Now the other one is CCID 35, and so you might be asking, how do you know it's in this next one down? Well, so the CCIDs, since they're in numerical order, you only can have up to CCID 31 in the very first active 01. So active 02 will be 32 to 63 CCIDs, and so on. And so if there's other warning lights you have on your dashboard, you can use this same option to go through and disable some of those CCID checks. And so just remember that you can find your CCID value, and then come in here, figure out which one it's in, and then code in the value to turn that check off. So CCID 2, its current value is FF7. So it's a little different than the first one. So there's already some things that are off by default from the factory here. And so you can take F7, you go over here to the hex to binary, flip it back the other direction, hex to binary. And if we type in F7, convert, this is our binary number for that last value. Everything else was already Fs, and we know that from before. That's all ones. Nope, I'll just paste it in here because I copied it already. So that is what FF7 looks like. And so essentially now we want to find the 35th bit in our binary value here. So again, this is read right from left to each one. However, this new first section here starts at 32. So if you kind of count over 32, 33, 34, 35. If you want to finish going off, so it's 35, 36, 7, 38, 39. So you have all the way up to CCID number 39 here. So what we're going to do is say 32, 33, 34. So this one right here is the bit we want to flip. So that's number 35 in this list. And then we want to just convert this back to hexadecimal. And if you'll notice, it's actually the exact same as this number over here. And so we can come down and do F7, FF, FF, F7. Now, again, you can go to the hex to binary converter or vice versa and get your number out of there, but because we can see it's identical to this side, we're just gonna go ahead and type it in like that. So back to NCS dummy, active 02, add custom data, F7, FF, F7. And then we're gonna click that checkbox. And now we're going to say export netodat, export netodat.man. And so now we have a new manipulation file that we can write into the combi module to get rid of our DSC warning and our DBC malfunction. So let's go ahead and do that. Go back to NCS expert. I'm gonna go ahead and say read ECU to make sure we still have connection to the combi. Okay, we pulled back data, so we know we have a good connection. Basic functions, code API, code SG by netodat, hit OK. And then now we're just gonna type in our file name, netodat.man, hit OK. And now we're gonna flash the combi. And I'll show you this as it comes up. I'll film a video of it, turn it on. So now you can see our DSC warning is gone. Now we just have that yellow brake light, which is associated with the hill start assist. So if I scroll through my warnings here and I go back to check control, I'm gonna hold down my BCC button again, and we're gonna see the CCID values that come up. So now I have just a couple lights, and then that 354 is the one we're going to turn off, and that's the hill start assist. It even says right there on the iDrive, and the rest of these are just light warnings that I have. So to code that one out, we're actually going to modify the DSC module. So let's go ahead and hit change ECU, find the DSC module, hit OK, hit OK. We're gonna read the ECU. I'm gonna move this over so I can see my module name. I haven't been doing that the whole time. Save as. I'm gonna call this netodat MK6087 COA. Go ahead and save that in there. I think I just saved it into the wrong directory as well. Yep, there it is. I put it in, it defaults into your work directory, so I'm just gonna I'm gonna move this out of here. So cut, go back to backup. This is the current factory coding for this module. So now same thing, I'm gonna go to browse, and we're gonna find our DSC backup we just created under our factory directory that I have here. So MK6087 COA is the module number we're looking for. So MK6087 COA is right here. Now this one for the hill start assist was actually a little difficult to find. So if you're looking through here, you'll have you can look for hill start assist, etc., but there's no text associated with it for some reason. However, it's this value right here. This C0B AFH HSA is the actual value we want to turn off. That's for hill start assist. You'll notice the default value is set to 1 currently, so that's here. I'm actually going to flip it to 0 like this, and then that's the only change we need to make. So I'm going to say export netodat, export netodat.man, and we're going to go back to NCS expert. We're going to read ECU just one more time to make sure that it's actually responding. We're good. Basic functions. SG by netodat, hit OK. And then we're going to type in netodat.man, hit alright. And then let me pull up video. We should see these lights turn off here in just a second. There you go. And that ABS light will actually go away on its own once it sees that brake is cleared. So if I go down to check control, and I go through all these, all I have is different warnings for my lights. I have no DSC or brake control warnings in here. So all my lights are coded out of the dashboard. All right, so I hope this was helpful for you all. I can answer some questions. I'm not a coding expert, but I was trying to figure this out about a month or two ago and figured I'd just dig into it, and this is what I came up with, and it seems to be working so far.